Welcome back, everyone. We're in Act 1, Scene 2 now of King Lear. We have a setting change from Lear's castle to Gloucester's castle, and we are exposed to Gloucester's bastard son, Edmund. Now, Edmund here is really portrayed as a sort of dark character. He's been compared to Iago from Othello, and he is also a Machiavellian character. If you don't know who Iago or what Machiavelli is, don't worry, you can just look it up or ignore it. So Edmund is placing all of his trust in nature. He's going to redefine the social order, because the social order says that his brother Edgar, the legitimate, should get Gloucester's lands and things like that. But Edmund says, no. Although I'm a bastard, I'm ambitious, and so I'm going to do whatever it takes to get what I want, whether it be moral or amoral. And what we have to realize is Edmund is motivated by a really huge inferiority complex. He feels inferior because he's a bastard. He knows that society looks down upon him, and he's so desperate even to prove his worth that he compares his style of birth to the legitimate Edgar's. He says, well, even though I'm a bastard is born with more playful sex, or something like that, something along those lines kind of thing. So we can see that he's kind of really stretching his worth, kind of just to justify that, you know, a bastard is just as good, if not better, than a legitimate. And he ends that speech, of course, with, now, gods, stand up for bastards. So, now we're going to see Edmund's plan unfold, and he's very, very cunning in his means of executing this plan. So his father, Gloucester, walks in, and Gloucester right now is in a craze of panic, which really is understandable. I mean, Lear has just done a bunch of crazy stuff, right? He's just banished Kent, he's banished Cordelia, he's given up his throne. A bunch of crazy stuff has happened in the course of, 1 hour? So Gloucester is sort of ripe for the picking. He's in the right mindset right now because he's not thinking straight. Edmund, very cleverly, as he walks in, sort of hides a letter that he was holding into his coat pocket. And Gloucester, of course, catches this immediately, and he demands to see the letter. Edmund at first hesitates kind of to not show him the letter, but eventually hands it over. Now, this letter is completely forged. It's 100% BS. The letter supposedly is written by Edgar, the legitimate, to him, the bastard. And it's a letter which encourages him to basically work with his brother to kill their father and split the wealth 50-50. So Gloucester reads it out loud to the audience, and like a fish to a hook, he bites whole on this idea. I mean, he's sold as soon as he reads it. Now, Edmund sort of plays the devil's advocate and pretends to be on Edgar's side this whole time, which of course we know he's not. He wants to displace Edgar 100%. And so Edmund sort of tries to defend his brother and make it seem like, you know, he has nothing to do with it. So Gloucester interrogates him. He says, "Have you never heard of this business before?" And Edmund says, "No, it was just shoved in my my closet or whatever, and I came in and I found it." And so Gloucester basically is fixed on this idea that his legitimate son has turned against him, which is rather ironic because he hasn't even talked to him yet on this idea. He's just sold on a letter. So this really speaks to Edmund's ability to deceive people. He's extremely good. He seems very credible, is what we should say. And so Gloucester makes a very famous speech that begins with, "These late eclipses in the sun and moon." So this touches on one of those really big ideas that Shakespeare likes to, you know, discuss sort of every now and then in the text. And he uses characters to portray these ideas. So the idea here is that men are victims of fate, sort of. And Gloucester says that it's the fault of the sun and the moon and, you know, these eclipses that people are doing all these crazy things. It's not people's fault, you know. People just react based on what the celestial bodies do, right? And Gloucester exits sort of in this craze, right? That his son has turned against him and Lear has gone crazy and basically the world's been turned upside down. Edmund now has a soliloquy after his father leaves, which expresses the exact opposite idea, that man is completely responsible for his own actions, and he finds it rather convenient that so many people around him are acting so silly, believing that all these eclipses and whatnot is what's causing people to act the way they do. And so his brother walks in now, the legitimate Edgar. And so Edmund, when his brother walks in, is pretending to observe the stars, which is rather ironic because he just gave a speech about how superstition and observing the stars is a bunch of baloney. So Edgar, the legitimate, says, do you busy yourself with that? And Edmund quickly gets into, well, have you spoken with our father recently? And he says, no. And he says, well, our father's rather furious with you. He's out to get you, essentially. And Edgar doesn't understand this. And when I read this scene the first time, I had to read it twice because I was so confused at how Edgar could be so completely gullible. In this scene, he completely accepts the idea that he has somehow, some way, offended their father to the point that their father is out to get him. Now, this is in part due to Edmund's ability to deceive people, but it really doesn't explain just his sheer gullibility. So Edmund says, oh, brother, I can hide you in my chambers or whatever, but if you do go outside right now, make sure you go armed, right? And so Edmund basically says, we'll speak about this later. And so when he's the last one on the stage at the end of the scene, he basically has a short soliloquy which summarizes that his father and his brother are a bunch of fops or foolish people, and he's going to have a really easy time deceiving them, and he's going to use his cunning to get what he wants, because he can't have it by birth.